from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Play ball.
We're getting a plan together, a crop plan together.
As we start a new season of baseball, a farmer who helps bring a favorite treat for baseball fans to life is starting his season too. Looking ahead,
corn's probably going to win out on those particular acres.
Ahead of USDA's big report day, more ag experts share their own planting predictions as two companies make a big announcement regarding moving grain out of Russia. That's right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Global commodities firm Cargill will no longer be involved in the export of Russian grain. The Russian Agriculture Ministry saying exports will end for Cargill's Russian unit as of July 1st, the start of the new marketing year. Now, Cargill accounts for up to 5% of Russian annual wheat exports and a small amount of corn. The Russian Agriculture Ministry saying Cargill stopping its export activities on the Russian market will not affect the volume of domestic grain shipments abroad. And we've learned Viterra will also exit the Russian grain market. Dan Bossi of Ag Resource Company telling AgDay the Russian state bank of VTB said years ago that only Russians should be shipping its grain. And Russia has stated several times that U.S. exporters are not welcome or supported in the Russian system. Bossi and Kevin Dooling of KD Investors both believe the Russian government is looking to completely own and control its grain exports. Bossi also saying that it would create large government-to-government trade and less transparency on price.
This sounds like a move from Russia to gain more control over their export situation and have it less privatized. So by doing that, they're going to, if they can get in control of every little piece of that, then they're going to be able to say, we'll export to you or we won't export to you.
And the war in Ukraine appears to be putting a strain on Russia's finances. The Wall Street Journal reporting the country's biggest exports, gas and oil, have lost major customers. And it says the ruble is down more than 20% since November against the dollar. And the labor force has shrunk as young people are sent to the front lines or flee the country over fears of being drafted. Now, the House Ag Committee continuing to press on with creating a new farm bill, inviting Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack to provide some updates and perspective this week. The Secretary focusing his comments on efforts of the Biden administration, saying that Congress has the opportunity to help the middle class with discussions around the farm bill, with a focus on expanding markets by providing more opportunities beyond livestock and crops and government payments, including ecosystem markets, biodiesel, renewable energy, and regional food systems. Now, members of the committee focused mainly on the 80% of the Farm Bill budget that goes towards nutritional assistance. But they also asked about foreign ownership of farmland, with Secretary Vilsack downplaying Chinese land ownership, citing reports that Chinese investors own less than 1% of U.S. land.
Would you be in favor of a buyer's disclosure to the seller, and that would go to the USDA stating exactly where the money is coming from to buy farmland in America?
The more information we have, the better job we can do of implementing the law that's on the books. Right now, we don't get the information that we need to completely comply with that.
Why aren't you demanding that information?
Well, we are demanding it, but the reality is we're talking about as you know, because you're in a real estate business, every county officer gets deeds every single day, and they're supposed to report to us. The question is, we don't have any investigative power. We don't have any ability to know on a particular day whether.
Well, what would you suggest, and we have 30 seconds left,
a clearinghouse.
What do we need to do to make this right before it's too late?
Some kind of clearinghouse.
Now, over on the Farm Bill front, the American Farm Bureau releasing a new poll done by Morning Consult. It shows nearly 3/4 of Americans say not reauthorizing the Farm Bill in 2023 would have a significant impact on the country. USDA has a big day on Friday. That's when we will get a look at prospective plantings for the upcoming season, along with the latest grain stocks. And average trade guesses are out. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us with a preview.
Clinton Reuters average trade guesses on corn acreage are at 90.88 million, which would be up nearly 2.3 million acres from 2022, but is slightly below USDA's projection at the Ag Outlook Forum. Planting intentions for soybeans are estimated at 88.24 million. Now that's up nearly 800,000 from both last year and USDA's estimate. Private firms like agmarket.net say corn acreage could come in higher, though, than the estimate as farmers locked in corn last fall with fertilizer applications. Plus, the corn-soybean price ratio and overall profitability tips in corn's favor, especially now.
I do think, though, that there was a really good fall this last year for most folks where I think we quantified a lot of those acreage decisions. But as far as swing acres are concerned, even though beans did some work for a while, obviously we've plummeted the last 3 weeks, first of all. Second of all, as you suggested, fertilizer prices have cheapened up. So I've got to think that as far as swing acres go, if Mother Nature cooperates, corn's probably going to win out on those particular acres.
On soybeans, Blue Reef Agri-Marketing believes acres will be above last year's 87.5 million and could be above the average estimate with the strong demand and profits farmers have seen the last couple of seasons. However, it's all dependent on Mother Nature.
I think the weather, it's very wet in the south. Do they kind of stop planting corn at a certain point, switch over to beans? Very wet in the north. That's where your swings come from. I would be a touch above that average estimate on the beans at this point. But again, I think the final say-so is going to be how the next 6 or 8 weeks of weather transforms.
And trade estimates for all wheat acreage coming in at 48.85 million acres, more than 3 million acres above last year, but below USDA's projection. Other spring wheat planting intentions are pegged at 10.95 million. That's up 110,000. Now, the trade believes cotton acres will be down over 2.5 million acres from 2022 at 11.21 million. Trade estimates on quarterly grain stocks are all below last year and would confirm strong cash prices and demand. Corn stocks are projected at 7.47 billion bushels. That's down around 300 million bushels. Soybeans at 1.74 billion would be down nearly 200 million, and wheat at 934 million would be down close to 1 million.
And storms are continuing to press east with the Midwest and Plains expected to see some rain. Meteorologist Chuck Heaver joins us with more.
Well, the storms keep coming across the country, and we have 2 threats of severe weather. Let's take a look here at future radar. You can see these pockets of thunderstorms off to the west of Memphis and Omaha. That's our first risk on Thursday. But Friday is when things get really interesting. A cold front will move across the center part of the country through Indiana, Illinois, and the Ohio Valley. And right there, Friday in the afternoon, there's the risk for the most severe weather. The Storm Prediction Center has put out some notices for potential for the severe weather, and you can see there off to the west on Thursday, and then over in Illinois, Missouri, and Indiana during the afternoon on Friday. And here's something you don't see every day. Tommy Long of Canton, North Carolina, saying he got a call from a neighbor reporting a cow was on the second story of an old abandoned home in a pasture that he rents. He says someone left the front door open. Obviously, the cow went upstairs. He says it's a first for him, adding, cows apparently can fly. Okay, I'll be back with your forecast.
So how did the news out of Russia impact wheat markets? Michelle Rook has more on that coming up in analysis. And later, what would a trip to the ballpark be without a bag of peanuts? See where they start their journey in the country.
AgDay is sponsored by Germinator Closing Wheels. Germinator steel closing wheels, perfected in conventional, excels in no-till. Order 12 to 16 rows today and qualify for free shipping or 20% off an end zone moisture management package.
China buying more U.S. old crop corn on Wednesday, marking the 7th straight day of sales, adding up to more than 121 million bushels. So how is that impacting prices? Michelle Rook is back with the answer in Markets Now.
Wednesday's market closes on the grains, mostly higher except for portions of the wheat complex. We have Ted Seifert with Zaner Ag Hedge joining us this morning. And Ted, let's talk about soybeans because they were kind of the price leader on the day. We've had a nice correction from the pullback, but how much more can we keep going here, especially going into the reports Friday?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Michelle. I mean, we're now 70 cents off the lows in just 4 days for soybeans. It's been a very impressive rally in what had looked like a chart meltdown. I would think that buying could slow down and maybe even see some profit taking in front of this report on Friday. This is one of the biggest reports of the year. And then you're gonna have to say after a recovery like this, it really needs to be a rather bullish report Because if it's not, you think, buy the rumor, sell the fact, and you could see a reversion back towards those lows or revisiting the whole idea of breaking out to the downside.
And the corn market's gotten pushed here now by some export demand from China. But again, we're running up into resistance. And how far can we push as you're looking at maybe bigger acres in the report on Friday?
Yeah, absolutely. We're running into moving average cluster, the 50, the 100, and 200 day, all within about 10 cents of each other. Wednesday's high was that 50-day moving average. I think that should hold us before the report. And then we'll have to see what the report says. Okay. But I will say, I'm glad that the trade expectations are, around that 91 million acre for corn. I was worried that because of last year's planted acreage, we might have some lowball expectations out there. But obviously, analysts were looking at last year's intentions and not just focused on what last year's planting was. Because again, we had some issues for planting and they fell well below the intentions.
And why did wheat kind of fade the Russia export news?
Yeah, I think the more the market thinks about it, they realize that those ports will be operating come July 1st. It just won't be in the hands of Cargill and Viterra. The Russian government has this propensity to like to take things. And one way or another, I think the Russians will continue to export wheat.
All right, a very interesting day for sure. Thanks so much for joining us, Ted Seifert-Zahner, Ag Hedge. Our full analysis on agweb.com, but we'll have more Ag Day coming up.
For professional marketing advice specifically tailored to your needs, call Zahner Ag Hedge at 312-277-0113.
Ag Day is brought to you by Meristem Crop Performance. Learn how to get more bushels for less at meristemag.com.
Meteorologist Chuck Heaver joining us here, taking a look at our national forecast. We've been expecting some severe weather, and it sounds like that system's just going to keep working its way east.
Yeah, there's a slight chance in small pockets on Thursday, but then a larger scope happens on Friday. Missouri, Illinois, Indiana is in the target zones. We're going to keep our eye on that. Let's take a look at the forecast. All right, let's go up into the jet stream and find out where the storms are headed. We have a trough out to the west, first of all. That trough is going to spin up a storm that's running down the coast and eject it into the center part of the country. You can see that here. The big concern with this is severe weather. As that storm moves off to the east, we're going to have a cold front push through, and that cold front is where we are focused on the potential for severe storms, not so much on Thursday, but on Friday and Friday evening. We go zonal. Then another storm forms off into the west and migrates its way to the east as well. So areas like Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, those areas are going to be targeted by both of these storms. Here is a look at the wind forecast. So let's just talk about Thursday. We have some higher winds up in the northeast, and then we have this batch of wind in association with those storms. These are 30, 40 mile an hour winds as that storm winds itself together and moves across the country. So the wind with the storm itself and then the wind combined with some of the heavier thunderstorms and possible tornadoes will make it a very interesting afternoon from Missouri all the way over into the Ohio Valley, especially on Friday and Friday afternoon. Thursday, there's a couple storms that pop up here, and the Storm Prediction Center has noted those as Thursday risks. So Thursday's here, and then Friday, you can see that moves off further to the east with an enhanced risk further to the east over Missouri, Illinois, Indiana. So keep your eye on that, and even further to the south. The precipitation forecast shows a lot of precipitation potential with those storms and snow where it is cold enough to snow out in the Mountain West, and then this batch right across the upper part of Michigan. That'll be interesting to see too. We might get couple feet of snow out to the west, and certainly a chance for 3 to 8 inches under some of those heavier bands across the upper Midwest. Here's the root zone forecast right now. You can see the center part of the country remains extremely dry. Most of the other part of the country isn't doing so bad. Temperatures though, look at this. Wow, Omaha 69 degrees today, down to the south all the way over in Miami 84, 83 in San Antonio. Tonight things cool off, but actually stay relatively mild all the way up to 45 degrees for a low in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then tomorrow, where are we going? Look at that warm air in front of that storm on Thursday. Yep. That's what we're going to worry about. Is on Friday, we're going to have this warm air pushing up, and that warm air meeting this cold air. That's that frontal boundary, and that's where the storms. All right, closer to home, Bruno, Minnesota. Sun then rain, 58, a low 31. There you go, Elko, Nevada, 43 and 19 with snow showers. And on top of Mount Washington in New Hampshire, a high of 5, low 2 with snow.
Ag Day is brought to you by Lamar's Toy Store, the largest and most diversified farm toy store in the U.S. They have new and old and do restorations and customizations too. You need to see it to believe it. Visit lamarstoystore.com or call us at 712-546-4305.
A new profit tracker shows slaughter levels are declining right now. According to a new Sterling beef profit tracker, average profit margins were mostly unchanged last week, with cash cattle prices moving just 50 cents higher. Feed yard margins were estimated at $195 per head. Packer margins declined $23 a head to an average of $34, while fed cattle slaughter was about 4,000 head fewer than the previous week and 16,000 head fewer than the same week last year. Italy is making a move toward banning lab-grown meat from the country. Officials say it's an effort to protect Italy's food heritage. BBC News reporting the proposal would ban laboratory-produced meat and other synthetic foods. If it passes, the ban would impose fines of more than $65,000 for violations. A farmers' lobby in the country is praising the move, and ag lobbies have collected 500,000 signatures calling for protection of natural food versus synthetic food. Now, the Prime Minister is among those who have signed. The proposed bill comes on the heels of other government decrees banning the use of flour derived from insects in pizzas or pastas. It's time to take us out to the ball game. And when Major League parks open up this week, they'll find a fan favorite. Meet the peanut farmer growing them next.
The 2023 Bracket Busters Challenge, presented by Case IH, is underway. Who's still in the game? To find out, head to AgWeb now through April 3rd to check the leaderboard.
In the Country on Ag Day is brought to you by Pivot Bio. What if you had the nitrogen you need already on seed? Pivot Bio is the first company to apply nitrogen on seed. The nitrogen you need, now on seed, from Pivot Bio. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
The Major League Baseball season kicks off this week, and that means stadiums full of adoring fans looking for traditional baseball fare, peanuts and Cracker Jacks. But where do those fan favorites come from? Those MLB stadium peanuts start right here at Donnie Lassiter's farm in North Carolina. While ball players are prepping for the season at spring training, the Lassiters are getting ready for the growing season.
So at this point in March, we're making plans. We're still not doing much field activities, but we're getting a plan together, a crop plan together. We are actually out doing a little bit of fertilizing and prepping the farmland for peanuts.
North Carolina has seen peanut production increase in recent years, growing 510 million pounds in 2022. But the biggest producer by far is Georgia, accounting for more than 50% of all U.S. peanut production at nearly 3 billion pounds. Now, once the crop is mature,
usually it dries overnight. You put them on the dryer that afternoon, 7, 8 o'clock. Usually by 7, 8 o'clock the next morning, they're dry enough you can deliver them to the market.
The market is here at Hampton Farms.
In 1989, we got into the in-shell processing business, where we started doing the salted in-shell peanuts like we distributed all the ballparks across the U.S. today.
You really want a good size peanut, and they really want to try to get a bright shell so it looks attractive in the bag. You know, the color of the shell really doesn't determine the kernel inside, but it just makes a more presentable product when you're selling it in the shell.
Hampton Farms' relationship with the MLB started back in the mid-90s.
And that has grown to, now we have 20-some different teams in stadiums all over the United States, and our relationship with Major League Baseball has blossomed as the sport has grown, and we are now moving millions of pounds through Major League Baseball, which greatly helps support our farmers here in the U.S.
A partnership built on teamwork from field to field.
When they grow peanuts for Hampton Farms, they're not only partnering with people like Severn Peanut Company and Hampton Farms, that they are proud to know that their peanuts end up in Major League Baseball parks across the United States.
Now play ball. And we want to thank BASF for sharing that video with us. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.